Hello, and welcome to the Medical Intuitive channel. I am Amy Elizabeth, a medical intuitive in the UK, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Peggy over here today, a medical intuitive in Melbourne, Australia, and also a very good friend. Hello, Peggy.
Oh, thanks for having me, Amy. Thank you so much.
Um, so it's usually the other way around, usually you interviewing people. Um, and your first question normally to your guests is, how would you describe medical intuition, or what would you describe as a medical intuitive?
Yes, this is a question that everybody's answered a little bit differently. I guess for me, it's a modality where we use our psychic gifts to tune into the body in order to uncover the emotional, spiritual, and physical causes of what might ever be going on. It could be pain, illness, suffering, it could be mental health issues. So yeah, so it's a crazy thing that I've considered myself to be this, because if you would have said 5 years ago that I had psychic gifts, that I was going to do something in this area, yeah, it'd be a far stretch. And I guess for me, I've always tried to go by scientific evidence-based modalities and interventions and mental health interventions and in my previous work. And I was, always looking for the rigor when I was trying to, I had to get accredited to do things, and there is no accreditation for this particular modality at the moment. There is no universal, process where we can get licensed. So it is a big stretch for me to actually call myself a medical intuitive, given that there's so much stigma involved. And there's a lot of people out there who are calling themselves things, and it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there. Some people are just making stuff up, and we don't know what they're doing. Um, it has been a bit of a stretch, but I've settled into it because I just resonate with the work so much now, and it just feels like my true purpose and calling.
Okay, well, that leads me to my next question. Have you always wanted to be a medical intuitive, or can you tell us the journey of like how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, well, it's a varied one because I guess for me, I started off as a good Catholic girl, grew up in Canada, had my fair share of challenges, intergenerational trauma, etc. Um, got to the end of high school, started studying Buddhism and world religions, and then studied university. I was studying history and politics. And I already always had a very strong sense of justice and doing, people in governments and doing the right thing. And I couldn't believe that there would be a God that would have allowed all this suffering in the world. There was no justice. And so I just became a full-blown atheist. And so there I stood in my atheism, much to the chagrin of, my Catholic family. I just couldn't reconcile that there was a God that would allow this suffering. My mom passed away, and even then I thought, no, she's just dead. That's it. It's really sad. Grief is awful. They just die. So that's how I was like that for about 20, I guess 20 years. And then fast forward, so I became a teacher, secondary teacher. And did I always have gifts? Because people have asked me that. I always had a very strong sense of intuition. And people would ask me questions, and I would get these hits, but I didn't know they were hits. I didn't know it was claircognizance. I just thought I had a very good, strong sense of logic. Um, and I was always drawn to try to help people, and I was very sensitive. And so these were always in the background. And then fast forward, I'm working at a prison. I worked in a juvenile detention center, and there was a whole bunch of people, crazy people that worked there. One guy at these work drinks, he starts telling me about his near-death experience. And my jaw was just about on the table because I thought, here's a real life person who I trust and really like. He's telling me this real story of dying and seeing the light and, the full story. And I just knew it was true. And in my heart, and I actually started crying because I was like, oh my God, maybe my mom is actually there. Maybe she's not just dead and, will in her little urn. She's actually, her spirit is still alive. That was when I was 44, so that was 11 years ago. And I just went down this rabbit hole. I just learned everything I could about near-death experience, spirituality, and I was just looking for all this scientific evidence. I kept finding all these people with PhDs and physics or, you know, um, anybody who had a scientific background, if they were talking about past lives, spirituality, channeling, quantum physics, I was lapping it up. And that's kind of just, I think it kind of started to crack me open. Meanwhile, I'm still, I've changed schools. No, I was still working at the prison, and I got caught up in this horrible riot where I had glass broken all over me. I had to hide in a closet. It was just one of those moments, I guess, where, your classic spiritual awakening, where you go through a serious crisis and to crack you open. I was broken physically, emotionally, and it was pretty bad. I got actually referred to go and see this psychic. And she knew everything about what had happened. She knew everything about my family and my best friend. And I was like, how could she know that? What is that? I had to know from a scientific perspective. So yeah, so that was another little catalyst. And I had treatments and all these sort of mystical things happened to me in these with cranial sacral therapy, and sort of just started to crack me open. I studied Vedic meditation. And in my meditations, I would say my mantra, and then bang, I was in the void. I was in this bliss and rapture. And it was, I don't know how to describe it. I guess I was connecting to source. I felt this overwhelming sense of love. And so all of these incidents, got me to the point where, like, okay, there is something else out there. And then I knew that I really liked counseling, and I'd been doing EFT tapping, but I knew there was something else out there for me, but I just didn't know. I didn't know what it was. And I'd had these readings done, and they would be so vague. They'd say, "Oh, I see you, oh, this one Akashic Records reader told me, oh, you're doing a job that no one's invented yet." And I thought to myself, well, how am I supposed to look for that? So I searched and I searched. I looked for courses to take, and you name the webinar, the book, the audio book, the podcast. I was just down the rabbit hole of any kind of healing. I did two retreats with Guy Lawrence, and I speak about that on his podcast. And they also cracked me open. And I guess from there, I was just surrendering to the process. That was one of the big lessons that I learned, was just surrender. I'd stopped getting the readings. The last one I had was, this lady said to me, "You're going to be tapped on the shoulder." So I said, I'm going to let it, because I knew that my soul wanted to do something else, and there was a life purpose for me. I just didn't know what it was. Fast forward to 2024, and I came across Patrice on Christoph, who I've interviewed twice now. And I look at the title of the podcast, and it says Medical Intuitive. And I went, oh, that's what I want to do. That's what really appealed to me. I listened to his podcast twice. I booked a session. I couldn't get in for ages because he was getting really popular. He sent me an email and said, "I'm called to see you earlier." I thought, oh my God, I'm dying. Am I dying? Does he know do I have cancer? Why does he want to see me earlier? So I was freaking out for about, I guess it was 5 days. And then we had this 3-hour session, and he still laughs about it because I was in my car because it was at 4 a.m. and I didn't want to wake anybody up. And at the end of the 3-hour session, he said, "Oh, we're just going to clean your crown chakra, and you've got this." And he said, at the end of the session, he said, "Oh, you've got what I have. You're a medical intuitive like me. Just send me a photograph. I've got a directory, and I'll just set you up, and I'll send you some clients." I was like, what? But it was funny because my soul knew that it was correct, but my thinking brain was just going, wait, hang on. But I'd felt so expanded, and I felt like home. It was the most bizarre experience. So that's actually how I discovered my gift. So, and then from there, the claircognizance, it comes in, and it's a thought. And then I did the mentorship with Patrice, and we spoke about this, just getting confirmation that everything that I was seeing, and I'd never tuned into a body before. I didn't know, I didn't know I had the gift until you go, "Oh, let me just look inside that. Oh, there is something there. Oh my goodness, I can feel it. I can see it. I can feel it in my body." I didn't know I had the gift until somebody said intentionally, you just try. So it's quite interesting when you surrender. And I guess that's my short
That's
version.
an amazing story. Thank you.
Thanks,
So,
Amy.
okay, if someone comes to see you then, do you want to speak about what a session with you would be like, what it entails?
Yes. So so a session with me starts with me. Well, look, as soon as people book, I actually start shifting energy. So one of the things that when we spoke about the definition, I didn't actually get into the detail, but there are people that can read the body really well. Medical disclaimer, we don't diagnose at all. Like, that has to be said for sure. No diagnosis. I don't call myself a healer. I'm a energy reader and channeler. I use my intuition, my medical intuitive gifts to read. But we are shifting. We are moving stuff. We're helping shift blocked energy. So straight away when somebody books, like, there's some kind of an agreement between their higher self and my higher self, and I'll start my releasing straight away. And I haven't even tuned into the body. It's involuntary. Usually a few hours before I start burping and shaking and all sorts of
I
stuff.
have
So,
this one of the things like I'm like, why have I got a sore throat? Why have I got a sore cheek?
oh
Why is my
yeah,
thing? And then you have a client come in and they're like, oh, okay, I've got this damage in my
yeah,
got
yeah.
I want to stop chewing my cheek. I've got this, that, and the other. And you're like, okay, it's not
Yes,
mine.
that's exactly right. So I do wake up, I go, oh gosh, I've got such a sore shoulder. Oh my God. And then I go, aha, okay, it's my client at 10 a.m. And so it
Mhm.
only lasts a few hours. But it's interesting how we're getting the intuitive hits as soon as that agreement. And it's interesting that that happens. So um, I sit down and I tune into the client. The client will normally tell me, and now I just want to burp, actually. It's quite funny. Just thinking about tuning into a client. Oh, it's just terrible. So then I tune into the client and I will so they'll usually tell me the list of things that what they want to release or what's wrong. And I will just start, I'll just start scanning the body. I usually start with a grounding because it just helps settle the energy. And then I give people a fair warning about what's going to happen. Um, about some kind of somatic release. Some people shake, they yawn, they burp, they cry, they can feel cold, they can feel hot, they can feel nauseous, or they might have no somatic experiences whatsoever. Um, so I tune into the body and I just start immediately getting, I guess, what they would call a download of what's going on. And so straight away, I get a very strong knowing whether it's a past life. So I used to get a lot more detail about what the past life exactly was. Oh my God, you're being beheaded, or it's a lot of sort of medieval visions that I get. Lots of torture, lots of yeah, and or they're the perpetrator as well. And so but in my experience, and it's much better if I just try to stay out of the details of what's happened and just stay in my heart space and clear it, because they don't need to know unless they really, really want to know. So oftentimes those past lives are related to pains that they might have in their body. And it's also related to some of their psychological limiting beliefs. And that's what I find, that oh, I can't use my voice, or I can't speak to my boss, or I just find it really hard to speak up to my mother-in-law. And I'm like, oh, that's because she's killed you in a past life. We have these recurring patterns that happen. And so I help those clients release those things. So that we start by doing past lives seem to come through first for me. And then I get the hits around entities and other things. So I know we spoke about entities before. And they are, look, they're energetic parasites, I guess. And some people are really spongy, and due to their personalities, they want to help everybody. So they take all these entities on. They're like, oh, you're suffering, let me help you. And then it goes on their body. So I spend a bit of time clearing that. Sometimes that is just the bulk of the whole session because they have a lot of layers around entities and attachments. Um, and then I guess the next phase of my session will be really around looking at this lifetime and what has happened in this lifetime that might be holding them back and causing pain and suffering. So I I just get how it works for me is I just kind of close my eyes and then I just get 3 years old. I'm getting a really strong pain in my stomach. Something happened to you in your three. It's the emotion. I get a very strong hit of the date and then the emotion. And the emotions are normally like things that we just bury really deeply that are really difficult to process. Powerlessness, guilt, shame, anger, grief. Our society just doesn't have really good, rituals for dealing with grief. It's like we have the funeral and then it's like, okay, just get on with it. There's no, especially in particular cultures, like, you just have to keep a stiff upper lip and keep going and cry quietly at nighttime on your own. And we're supposed to have a village around us celebrating and talking about those moments. They get stuck and they really get stuck in the body. And so those hits will come in. And then there's a very strong somatic release normally around that. So that I get, like all the stomach issues are related to this, or or the lower part of the left part of your heart has got a constriction around this valve. And that's related to when you were 42 years old. And they go, yes, oh my God, yes. So it gets very specific about where it is in the organ or where it is in the body and the charge that's there. And then just by speaking it aloud, and I guess the person is allowed to safely release it. And I'm burping, I might throw up. So unfortunately, that's what happens. I might speak some light language, and then it's released.
And so when your clients are in sessions, are they quite accepting of what's happening? Or do you find that sometimes there's resistance and people are like, what's going on? Or
Yeah, look, I think if you've got to the point where you've booked a medical intuitive, um, most of my clients, they see energies, they're very sensitive. They feel, they assume they can tune in straight away. They go, oh wow, yeah. And they can feel my energy and they have a very strong like reaction. And I haven't had clients that are like, knock on wood. Well, actually, I asked the divine to send me clients that I can help. Um, so I think the skepticism, it's interesting. I've had a couple of people that have been a bit resistant, but they just weren't ready, and that's totally fine because we can't clear everything. It's only the energy that I can read on the day. I can't read everything unless your higher self wants me to read it. There might be some kind of soul contract where you actually just have to go through this yourself, and I can't help you release it. So there is that, and sometimes there is something bigger, and I might suggest that client come back for a joint session between you and I, or Patrice and I, or I suggest them to go to a group session because there's something intuitively I know that there's going to be a clearing based on whoever else is in that group. There could be a past life related. But that just comes in as a hit. So I will know intuitively who to send the person to. And that's basically, I guess that's how my sessions do work. And then it's all recorded, and then I follow up with a list of suggestions. Now, the other thing that comes in for me is I will get intuitive hits around something to do with nutrition, around there could be deficiencies. Now, I'm not diagnosing anything, but I'm saying you need to get some blood work done, right? And so I'm getting this hit that, or this needs to be added to your repertoire, or actually, yeah. So those are the things that come in. And I think that from my perspective, it's just helping people to have more data, more information when they go to their healthcare providers, whether it's a
yes, so I was
licensed.
going to ask you actually, like, how do you see medical intuition sitting with, working with regular healthcare providers?
Yeah, look, I mean, my dream would be, we have this holistic practices where everybody's working together because, I think there is such a strong relationship between emotions and pain. Like it's so obvious. And I even discovered this even through my EFT tapping when I trained in that modality, where I would have a kid when I worked in a school, they would come to me with like severe nausea wanting to throw up, like, stomach churning. And I knew it was an anxiety because that was my intuition hitting me. And then we would do this tapping. And now maybe I was clearing for them back then. And I was doing this transmuting, and I didn't know about that probably,
Mhm.
which was my superpower. But we would tap, and then in 5 minutes, the pain would go away, and I could get, well, I would say 10 minutes. I go, how's your stomach? Oh, it's gone. Now, sometimes it wouldn't go because I knew that they just didn't want to be in class. So they didn't want to release it. But the kids who wanted to release it, gone, you know? And so it's like there is a strong connection between the emotion and the physical. And I think if doctors, you know, we need doctors. We need them to fix our bones. We need them for our scans. We need the science. We need the medicine. You know, I got sick in August. I did about 10 healings, sessions. But I needed antibiotics because I had pneumonia. And I knew it was part of my expansion. And I knew I was doing too much. And the universe, one of my biggest things was, listening to little signs. My body's telling me, rest, you need more sleep. I was not listening to that. And even when I knew I was starting to get sick, I just didn't get enough rest. So then the universe just went, bam, you don't get a free pass with getting a whole bunch of people to shift this from you. You have to learn this by yourself. So I had to go through that those challenges to get myself, to raise my vibration and to get into the vibration of health. And yeah, so I think we really need to work alongside, allied health professionals, as they call them in Australia, and medical doctors, but we need to also equip people to, rather than masking chronic pain with all your medication, if you are curious, could there be some other reasons for that chronic pain? And, I know that even pain specialists and even, all the studies around, let's say, you can do an MRI of a back or a knee. You could have 100 people with the same slipped disc, let's say, for example, that show up on an MRI, or a knee, a degenerative knee. You would have 100 different presentations of what that pain looks like in their body.
Hmm.
So there is no correlation between some of those, X-rays and MRIs and what presents. So what does that tell you? There has to be some other causes, right? I mean, so in a beautiful world, we would have the diagnosis, we do the MRI, we try those traditional techniques. Okay, let's just rule out anything mechanical. Let's try your rehab, do your physio, do your exercise. Okay, well then let's find out what else might be under, because people do have that ability to heal themselves. It's such a beautiful thing. But as Patrice said, they'd have to go on a mountain for 50 years, meditating in that, to get rid of the whole monkey mind. So why not use people that are in their heart center and just want to serve and help, to help you shift that? So I guess that's how I envisage the combination of, yeah, professionals working alongside. I would never, I love my doctor. She's fantastic. I need blood work done. I need to still take things. Yeah, that's how I see it, I guess. But what else can we do for people to help them for true wellness? I think there is such a strong link between those high vibrational emotions, right? Your love, your compassion, your joy. Like when you sit in the vibration of those emotions, then you will have a higher frequency, and you will have better vitality, and you withstand those bombardments of whatever's coming near you. Like, can we prove that? Probably not. I don't know how we can prove that. I do know that, the lower stress, there are definitely studies around lower cortisol and increase in your immune system. But those lower vibrational emotions of like anger, frustration, judgment, guilt, they keep us, I think, vibrating low and a bit sick. So it's hard. So I think, part of a lot of what I do is help people through that there's a lot of coaching and counseling that happens in the sessions as well about how they're processing what's happening to them. Is it to them? Is it for them? Are they part of their thoughts? They are not their thoughts. So we do a lot of that stuff that you're really good at too, maybe. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so that was my other question. Like, what do you think is one of the main underlying causes of disease and stuff? But we've kind of covered some of that. Is there any more that you'd
Yeah.
like to go into on that?
Yeah. Look, I think I think I want to speak a little bit about a lot of people do all the right things and then they, but they're not living from their heart space.
Hmm.
And I thought I knew what that meant until I just kept, obviously, Patrice kept triggering me. But until when you really, really live from your heart space, it is completely, completely different. So that means that any judgment that you have of anyone at any time comes back to really hit you. And I guess that's that karmic cycle. But what I find mostly when I'm working with my beautiful clients is that some of them are, so many of them are empaths and they want to help everyone, but they have this judgment of themselves. They'll forgive everybody else but themselves. And, you've got and so part of that is that karmically, like, it's like you're stuck there and that really can help, it prevents, you know, um, the energy flowing through your body properly. And it just lowers your vibration. And it's funny because people can sit there and do, be giving. They're constantly giving. They're always thinking of others. They look at other people and they forgive them for all of their evil acts or whatever because they've got these beautiful hearts and they see the goodness in everyone, but they don't turn it to themselves and they don't spend any time and they never ask for help. They don't ask the divine, they don't ask spirit for help, they don't ask. So I spend a lot of time helping people release that judgment of themselves and of others. And even those benign, like seemingly benign thoughts of like judgment of our partners, of our colleagues, of people that are not doing the right thing, but those are negative vibrations that come back to haunt us. And they, if I think about it like this, you know, whatever I'm judging in others is normally what I'm judging in myself. And it really, then it's just this horrible cycle. And you're not living from your heart space because you're stuck in your 3D mind. That's just this little hamster wheel. Yeah, and it doesn't lead towards wellness or vitality. So, I mean, it's not that I've got that mastered. I'm still learning every day, right? So, I think that sitting in your heart space and being a just grateful and kind, and it doesn't mean that there's spiritual bypass about negative emotions. So I'm still going to feel feelings like frustration, anger, sadness. But I know that they pass really quickly and they're not me. That's not who I am. They're just thoughts in my head.
No holding on to them,
Yes, yes, yeah,
allowing yourself to feel and having them move through.
yeah, yeah. And I think we're so programmed to avoid those feelings, and it's that's how we grew up. There is no, like, I mean, I'm Gen X, I'm 55. There was no feelings at all. We weren't allowed to have feelings. There was no, like, my dad used to say to me, "Oh, I can't hear you," and I was crying. I'm like, "Oh, I'm crying. Oh, I can't hear you." I was like, "Okay." So that means the message is what? Okay, I'm not allowed to be sad. So it took me a long time to go, all right, actually, to sit with that uncomfortable feeling and honor that and go, okay, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. But I just release it and I forgive whoever has done something to me, and I just, release it. I don't have to say it to their face, or, it's kind of a, um, I have to let it go. And then once it's gone, it's gone. And then I can then take a deep breath, go back to my heart space, and just relish in the human experience that we signed up for, which is this duality of sadness and frustration and happiness and joy. And if we can spend 90% of our time in those beautiful emotions every day, then I think that's one of the key components to vitality and wellness. Very hard to do when you're constantly being triggered. So there's a lot to work through. Yeah.
But one day there'll be no triggers, or they'll, yeah, you'll just
Yeah.
recover from them so quickly.
Oh, well, I feel like that's where I'm
Exactly.
at right now. I feel like I just have to laugh, right? I just, when the triggers come up, I go, oh, this is so funny. Thank you. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
universe. Thank you,
Beautiful trigger.
universe. Okay, I'll surrender. And I think, I mean, that's one of the other things that I help people with is really what are their major soul lessons and what of their, so that's, I'm able to access the Akashic Records. And I also channel in information for whatever their highest good from whoever seems to show up. It's whoever shows up on the day. It could be, it could be an angel. It could be, yeah, you've seen them all. I don't know who, yeah.
I know. I can
Yeah.
see you like, do I mention this or not?
Yeah, yeah. So they do come through. And so there's channeled messages that do come through for the client. And I have a very strong sense of what a person's soul, the key soul lessons for them in this lifetime. And remember, like, part of the coaching and understanding is that we signed up for this. Like we chose these things. So that, and sometimes those things are really hard to hear, like, why did I choose my alcoholic mother? I know why I chose an alcoholic mother, to get me to where I am today. And everything that's happened to me is for me. And that's the beautiful part of this spiritual journey where I'm at, is just this sort of, incredible revelation that it's just all happening for us. And that we can get through it.
Mhm.
With beautiful friends, yes. So
Oh, beautiful, Peggy. Is there anything like, so have you got anything coming up that you want to share, events or anything like
yes,
that?
I do. Actually, I became a little bit obsessed with the whole notion of karma. And the former teacher in me just thought, "Well, everyone has to know about this stuff." So I did a little webinar, and it's on 2 different time zones. For the Australians, it's 5 p.m. on the 20, I have to look at the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd of March. So that's coming up. It's just $22. It's going to be a short little understanding of how karma affects you. And actually how to lower your karmic load. And I think there's some interesting stuff around what we consume, and how vibration that affects us. Like, I mean, I
Mm.
used to be obsessed with crime dramas, right? Like, you name the UK crime drama, and I was there. I loved every second of it. Um, but now I can't actually watch any of that stuff, because if you're getting entertained by those shows, it's karmically, it's really got bad for your body. Like, it's like you're getting entertained by suffering, by revenge, by these lower vibrational frequencies. It's not good for you. Anyway,
Mm.
it's probably a bit harsh for people to hear that. My husband still loves all his crime shows, but that's okay. I watch documentaries with him, if I can. So I'm doing something on, that was a long story, but on karma. And then there's a meditation to release the karmic. Yeah, there's karma can get wedged into parts of our body, and there's a lot of sort of general themes where that can get wedged. So there's a release for that, and I believe that you'll be there and Patrice will be there as well. So that's fantastic. So I should be a very high vibrational session. And then I just have one-on-one bookings at the moment, which I really enjoy. And I might be called to do some more offerings with you, Amy, in the
And
pipeline.
do you want to, what's your website if people
So
want to
it's
book with?
peggyo.com.au, very straightforward. But I'll put some links, and it is actually linked to the Medical Intuitive channel. It's tagged there, but I'm called to also put your links as well you've got some groups coming up, which are beautiful, and I love attending, and I always release things. So even as somebody who is working in this space, I think that one of the other things I really want to leave people with is that even if you are working in this field, you've got psychic gifts, you're coaching, whatever, it's a never-ending journey. It's a onion that continues to be peeled, and there's constant
And
upgrades
continue to
and
level up. Yeah.
exactly. And I think that I never shy away from those groups because they just fill my heart so much with what's happening and just witnessing people, yeah, shed layers and cry and reconnect to themselves. And it's that's my television. That's all. I just like doing the
I
group.
agree. I agree. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
watching the show.
Yeah, no, it's so beautiful. It's really beautiful. So my hope is that 2025 is supposed to be a bit crazy, right? Everyone's predicting all these things. But I'm just not getting caught up with the fear, and I'm just really enjoying the where I'm at. And I'm finally have, exactly where my soul wants to be, which is working with clients in this space.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you so much for
Thank
being a
you.
wonderful guest.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for asking me questions, Amy, and I really appreciate it.
Thank
We'll see you
you.
next time.
Yes.